Hey everyone, looking to hire a Vonage developer? Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to take a deep dive into all the things you need to know.
Yeah, quick cheat sheet.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Shit.
A cheat sheet to finding the perfect Vonage developer for whatever project you got going on. And to help us out, we've got some awesome insights from theperfectdeveloper.com. Those guys are like the gurus when it comes to developer hiring. In fact, before we even get started, you should totally check out their 5 questions thing. It's over at theperfectdeveloper.com. And it's like a personalized roadmap. It helps you figure out like the best way to hire for what you need.
It's a really cool tool.
It is. So make sure to check that out after the deep dive.
All right, let's get into it. First question. What does a Vonage developer actually do?
Yeah, because like we all use those cool features, right? Video calls, instant messaging, even like those little SMS notifications we get. All that stuff is powered by Vonage, but like who's the wizard behind the curtain?
That's where our Vonage developers come in. They're the ones who take Vonage's APIs and weave them into the fabric of applications. They're making all that real-time communication stuff happen.
Okay, so how are they different from like regular web developer?
It's all about focus. A web developer might build the whole website, the structure, the functions, the whole 9 yards. But a Vonage developer, they're laser focused on those real-time communication pieces. They live and breathe Vonage APIs, like the voice API for calls or the conversation API for chats and messaging.
So they're like the communication specialists of the dev world. Gotcha. So what kind of skills should we be on the lookout for when we're hiring one of these communication ninjas?
Well, knowing Vonage APIs inside and out is obviously a must-have. But beyond that, you'll want someone who's comfy with back-end languages like JavaScript, Python, PHP, that kind of stuff. Those languages are like the bread and butter when you're working with Vonage APIs.
Makes sense. You got to speak the language of both the app and the communication tools.
Right. And problem-solving skills are huge. Real-time communication can get pretty tricky, so you need someone who can think on their feet, debug like a champ, and come up with solutions when the pressure's on.
Okay, problem solver, check. What else?
Oh, experience with WebSockets, WebRTC real-time databases is a major plus too. Those technologies often go hand in hand with Vonage APIs.
Got it. Now, what about portfolios? What should we be looking for when we're checking out potential hires' work?
Look for projects that scream real-time communication. Custom chat apps, integrated video conferencing, rock-solid SMS notification systems, anything that shows they can build and deploy stuff using Vonage APIs.
So it's not enough to just say, hey, I know Vonage on their resume. They got to show me the goods.
Exactly. And speaking of goods, let's talk about the elephant in the room. How much does it cost to bring one of these Vonage gurus on board?
Let's get down to brass tacks. What's the damage?
Well, like any tech role, it depends on experience, location, and what your project needs. Entry-level developers might start around 60 to 90,000 a year, but senior developers with a proven track record using Vonage, they could be looking at 120,000 or more.
Wow, that's quite a range. So budgeting carefully is key.
Absolutely. And you know what? ThePerfectDeveloper.com actually has some really helpful resources on understanding developer salaries and how to negotiate rates.
Sweet, I'll have to check that out. Now, does location play a role in all this? Like, does it affect cost or finding the right talent?
Definitely, location is a big factor in both salary expectations and how many developers with Vonage experience you'll find. Places like North America and Europe tend to have a bigger pool of seasoned Vonage developers, but that experience comes with a higher price tag.
So it's like a trade-off cost versus experience. What about other parts of the world?
You can often find really talented Vonage developers in places like Asia and Latin America at more competitive rates, but you might have to think about things like time zones, language barriers, and even cultural differences, especially if you're managing a remote team.
So many things to juggle. Okay, let's say we've got our budget figured out and we know where we want to look for talent. What are our options for actually bringing someone on board? Full-time, part-time, freelance? What's the best way to go?
There are a few different paths you can take, each with its pros and cons. Full-time gives you stability and someone who's dedicated solely to your project, but it's usually more expensive and you're making a longer commitment. Part-time or freelance gives you more flexibility, but you might have to deal with juggling schedules and potentially limited availability.
It's a tough choice.
Yeah.
So once we've figured out the employment type, where do we actually find these elusive Vonage developers? Is there like a secret society we need to know about?
Not quite a secret society. But there are some great spots to hunt for talent. Freelance platforms like Upwork and TopTal have tons of developers from all over the globe, including those specializing in Vonage. Then you've got tech-specific job boards like Stack Overflow or GitHub Jobs. And of course, theperfectdeveloper.com has a curated network of developers who've been vetted and have expertise in all sorts of technologies, including Vonage.
Okay, so let's say we found some promising candidates. How do we make sure we're asking the right questions during the interview? How do we really grill them on their Vonage expertise?
That's where your own understanding of Vonage APIs and real-time communication comes in handy. Don't just ask generic coding questions. Dig deep into their experience with specific Vonage APIs, how they approach real-time communication challenges, and whether they know their stuff when it comes to security best practices.
So we need to make sure they can actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly, and pay attention to how they communicate. Can they explain complex stuff clearly? Are they enthusiastic about the project? You want someone who's not just technically skilled, but also a good communicator and a team player.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Now, are there any red flags we should watch out for during the interview?
Definitely. Be wary of anyone who overemphasizes their general development skills, but can't give specific examples of their work with Vonage APIs. And watch out for a lack of understanding of key real-time communication concepts, like latency synchronization error handling. Those are make or break things in the Vonage world.
So they got to know their stuff.
Okay.
Any final tips on making the hiring process as smooth as possible?
Define your project needs clearly. What specific skills are you looking for? Once you know that, create a killer job description that outlines those requirements and highlights the cool parts of the project. And consider using a structured interview process with set questions so you can compare candidates fairly.
That's super helpful. And you know what else is super helpful? Theperfectdeveloper.com. They've got a treasure trove of resources on everything from writing that killer job description to navigating the interview like a pro.
Seriously, check them out.
We will.
Onboarding is so important, especially with specialized roles like Vonage developers. You want them to feel like part of the team right away, ready to dive in from day one.
Totally. So how do we nail that onboarding experience? What's the secret sauce?
Preparation is key. Before they even start, make sure they have everything they need. Logins, project docs, contact info for everyone important.
Like a welcome kit.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of a good first impression. A team lunch, introductions to key people, even a personal note from their manager. It can make all the difference.
Those little touches go a long way.
Absolutely. On the practical side, make sure the development environment is all set up. They can access the code repos,
Okay.
and there's a clear process for getting them up to speed on the project.
We want to remove any roadblocks so they can start contributing ASAP.
Right. And remember, onboarding isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. Regular check-ins, feedback sessions, and opportunities for professional development. Those are all crucial.
Like nurturing a plant.
Yeah,
You got to give it the right environment to thrive.
perfect analogy. Speaking of thriving, how do we keep these awesome Vonage developers once we've found them?
Yeah, retention is huge these days.
It is. So what can we do to keep them happy and engaged for the long haul?
Well, flexibility is a big one, right?
Yep.
People want control over their schedule and where they work.
Definitely. Offering remote work, flexible hours, or even a compressed work week. Those are all great perks.
It shows you trust them and respect their work-life balance.
Exactly. Another thing is fostering a culture of continuous learning. Give them opportunities for professional development, workshops, conferences, online courses. Encourage them to explore new tech and expand their skill set.
Basically, invest in their growth and show them you care about their career.
Right. And don't forget about the importance of meaningful work. Make sure they understand how their work contributes to the bigger picture, how it aligns with the company's mission and values.
Help them see the purpose behind their everyday tasks.
Exactly. When people feel like their work matters, they're more likely to stay engaged and motivated.
So to sum it up, retaining Vonage developers is about flexibility, growth, and purpose.
You nailed it. But let's be real. Even in the best teams, conflict happens.
True. It's inevitable when you have different people with different perspectives. How do we handle conflict so it doesn't derail the whole team?
Open and honest communication is key. Encourage people to express their concerns respectfully.
Create a safe space where they can speak freely without judgment.
Exactly. Remember, conflict isn't always a bad thing. It can actually lead to growth and innovation if it's handled the right way.
It's an opportunity to learn and improve.
Right. Sometimes it helps to bring in a neutral third party, especially if the conflict involves a lot of people or it's getting in the way of productivity.
A first perspective can work wonders.
It can. Before we move on, I want to mention something really important. The tools and resources that can help you find and hire Vonage developers.
Oh yeah, we've talked about all the things to consider.
Yeah.
But are there any shortcuts?
I'm glad you asked because theperfectdeveloper.com has this awesome tool. It's called the 5 questions, and it helps you figure out the best way to hire developers.
The 5 questions. Tell me more.
It's super simple but really effective. You answer 5 quick questions about your project, like what kind of developer you need, your budget, your timeline, and it gives you personalized recommendations on where to find the best talent.
So it's like a personalized hiring guide.
Exactly. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find this 5 questions tool?
It's right on the perfectdeveloper.com's homepage. Super easy to find and use. It could save you a ton of time and hassle.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on to our final segment. Let's talk about the long game. Building a team of Vonage developers for the future.
Sounds good. We'll explore how to create a culture of innovation and collaboration so your team stays engaged and your projects keep moving forward.
So we've talked about hiring, onboarding Vonage developers. But like building a team, it's not just a one-time thing, right? It's about creating a
Mhm.
culture where people are excited to come to work, where they can innovate, collaborate, and just like thrive.
You're absolutely right. And when we're talking about something as specialized as Vonage development, that culture is even more important.
Yeah, because it's not just building an app, it's like building the future of communication.
Exactly. So, how do we create this awesome culture? Where do we even start?
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
It all begins with fostering a growth mindset. Encourage your team to constantly learn, experiment, push the boundaries of what's possible with Vonage APIs.
So it's like giving them the freedom to take risks, to try new things, to maybe even break a few things along the way.
Exactly. Mistakes are just opportunities to learn and get better. Make sure your team feels comfortable experimenting, sharing ideas without being afraid to mess up.
That's so important. Creating that safe space where people can speak their minds, challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. And remember, collaboration is key. Encourage pair programming, code reviews, knowledge sharing sessions. When developers work together, they learn from each other, they solve problems faster, and they build stronger relationships.
It's like that saying, two heads are better than one, but in this case, it's a whole team of brilliant minds coming together.
Right. And to keep those brilliant minds innovating, make sure you're staying up to date with the latest and greatest in the Vonage world. Encourage your team to attend webinars, explore new APIs and features, and share what they learn with the rest of the team.
So it's all about continuous learning, staying ahead of the curve
Hmm.
in this fast-paced world of tech.
Absolutely. And here's something that might sound a little crazy, but encourage your team to contribute to open source projects or participate in hackathons.
But why would we want them working on stuff outside of our company?
It's actually a fantastic way for them to learn new skills, network with other developers in the Vonage community, and bring fresh ideas back to your team.
That's a really interesting point. It's like recognizing that sometimes growth happens outside of the traditional work setting.
Exactly. Now, we've talked a lot about building a strong team culture, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the people. Finding the right people who are passionate about communication technology, excited to learn, and eager to collaborate.
And that's where the perfectdeveloper.com comes in clutch right.
You know it. They've got a knack for connecting companies with top-tier developers. Developers who have the skills and the passion to bring communication-powered projects to life.
Yeah, their 5 questions tool is like a secret weapon for anyone looking to hire the best Vonage developers out there.
It really is. It takes the guesswork out of finding the right resources and connects you with the perfect talent for your needs.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Vonage developers, remember, it's all about finding people who not only have the technical chops, but also the right mindset. They got to be passionate about communication tech, hungry for knowledge, and ready to collaborate.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And don't forget about theperfectdeveloper.com. They can make your hiring journey so much easier.
Absolutely. Head over to theperfectdeveloper.com and give their 5 questions tool a try. It's your personalized guide to navigating the world of developer hiring. And with that, we'll wrap up this mini deep dive. Happy hiring, everyone.